You might have heard more and more recently that movement, embodiment, is really good for your mental health. And of course, we've heard this in so many ways through the years that there's a connection between the mind and the body. And then you probably know when you exercise, you feel more energy. There's so much there. And we're going to take it to another whole level on how embodiment and movement can really have a big impact on your stress and your overwhelm and just your overall life. Especially when we get a little older, we know that things can get a little stiff and it affects us. It affects us and it affects you. So I am so stoked to have my dear friend Michelle here. It's really funny because we've known each other for years and I still don't know how to pronounce her friggin' name. We were laughing before. It's like, okay, Michelle, let's welcome her to the stage here. Michelle Nayeli Bouvier. Did I get it right?
So close, so close.
Well,
Bouvier, but so
Bouvier.
close.
Oh my God, Bouvier. Well, it's a good thing that you forgive me.
Of course.
I I love you and I love the work that you do and I love your brain. This woman, I have to say, has the chops. My goodness. You look at her and she's just like she floats through the air. You have this beautiful heart fairy like kind of way about you. And the brain that's in that body of yours is quite impressive. Let me share a little bit about this amazing woman, Michelle Nayeli Bouvier is an interdisciplinary embodiment specialist, yoga therapist, teacher, trainer, and creator of the cutting edge. I should ask you this one. Kutilaa School of Embodied Resilience. Did I say it right?
Yeah,
Kutilaa?
that's good.
Lucky
Yeah.
me. Rooted in passionate, cutting edge study of ancient teachings, meeting modern science, Michelle's decades of experience and groundbreaking work are helping lead the evolution of integrative embodied practice for personal and collective mental and emotional and physical resilience. Welcome, Michelle. I'm so glad we get to play together and share your amazing wisdom with my people.
Me too, Junie. I love what you bring. You're the hostess with the mostest, and it's always fun to chat with you.
Aw, thanks, hon. Thank you. So, like I said, we've been hearing a lot more about mental health benefits when it comes to movement and embodiment. I'd love for you to tell us more what that actually is from your perspective, and maybe even just give us the definition of embodiment, because even that word is kind of new in the realm of now. Let's just say that. Embodiment. What does that even mean?
Yeah, sometimes in my circles, I almost feel like the word is overused. So I
Oh,
love that it's
interesting.
new in the
Mm.
mainstream. And there can be so many different meanings. To me, it is having a felt sense of yourself in the physical body in a way that is about knowing yourself and attuning to the messages that your body will send you. Then there's another level of embodying our values and like walking our talk and how our outer life and our choices align or not with what we hold as important. And then there can be, embodiment of different qualities or emotions. Like, how do we move? How do we be? How do we hold ourselves? How is our interaction with others when we are sad or happy or courageous or fearful? How is that sort of expressing and unfolding and showing up? Because they all have their own imprint and signature that, there's some commonalities, but it's really individual. And the connection with mental health is multi layered. So I'll start with the
Yeah.
basics.
Yeah.
We know now in trauma healing, I'm not a trained trauma therapist, but I do know the mechanisms, and I've had my own experiences, that trauma doesn't fully resolve without an embodied component, without a somatic component. And so that word somatic is based on the word soma, which came out of Thomas Hanna's work of somatics. He coined that word. And soma refers to the experience of a living, breathing, feeling body from the inside. Because a body could just be dead, right? So soma is this living intelligence within the body. And this somatic aspect of healing is because the way our nervous system works, we have the sensory input in. So the only way that we get information into our nervous system, which includes the brain, the spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system. There's lots of maps of how we divide this, but we can think of,
Yeah.
an in and an out. So everything that's coming in is through the sensory pathways, all the five senses, and the sixth sense. I'm going to bet money that someday we're going to say we have six senses. That is in our tissues, in the gut feeling, in our instinctual feeling. We call it neuroception.
Yeah.
And so all this comes in, and then we process it with some assessment of safety and meaning. And the only way that that information, experience, and energy comes out is through the motor pathways. So everything in our life is an experience that we assess, take information in, digest, and to complete that process, have to move in some way. And sometimes moving is closing your eyes, or moving your mouth, or walking away, or going in for a hug. But we're primarily physical beings, so this movement completion is really, really key. And so I use trauma as an example because I think that's in the zeitgeist. Trauma is when there's energy that's stuck, literally, because we weren't able to complete that process. Say that the appropriate response would be to run, but we couldn't run away. And so, literally, there's a stopping or lockdown of that process. And then there's another level where that sixth sense in our tissues, our felt sense of, where am I? Where is my weight? Where are my arms? We have where we are in space is called proprioception. And then we have this feeling of what's happening internally, interoception, which is a funny word, but it works. It includes things like appropriately feeling hunger or thirst, or we have to go to the bathroom. But it's also, what do you feel inside of your knee right now? What are the signals of pain or pressure or freedom or spaciousness? Words are kind of limiting, but it's infinite, that we feel from the inside. And the more that we take time to feel that, it's so simple actually. The more we can regulate ourselves. It's connected to the parts of the brain for sense of self, for empathy for others, and for regulating the nervous system as a tool, but also then being more aware of if we need to regulate, because we'll get those sensations like butterflies in our stomach or tension creeping up and that kind of thing. And so we can
Wow.
use embodied practice as maybe the lowest hanging fruit, one of the lowest hanging fruits for attuning to our nervous system. And I like to say, it's the last piece, that co-regulation is our new superpower. When the world is totally crazy, the more we can be regulated so that we can be like the stone in the pond and ripple out to help others,
Love
is
that.
really huge.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love that. Okay. Wow. All right. So we're taking in all this information, we're having these experiences, and we're having this sensory experience, so to speak. And then you said there's the movement aspect. Trauma in the past might have we might have had an experience where we weren't able to move, or our bodies took on an experience because of what we were taking in. So that's one thing I want to get a better sense about around how do we even work with that. The other question I have, though, is what happens as an adult when we're getting all this information and we're just sitting on our ass watching TV, or not moving our bodies to move the energies that we're feeling. We're feeling the butterflies and we're not addressing it. We're noticing, or maybe not noticing, the tension in our bodies, kind of sweeping it under the rug, and we keep going and we're not regulating. So can you share a little bit about how to heal the past trauma in our bodies? Because a lot of people at this time of their life are going, there's something going on here and I feel out of sorts. I'm not aligned and I'm having challenges connecting with people. I'm having challenges in my relationships or lack thereof. So the past trauma, getting stuck in the body, what might they be able to do? And in general, people not moving, not being in tune with their body, what might movement help them with? Can you riff on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, if someone's experiencing a very strong, clear need for trauma healing, please go seek out a therapist. But I would recommend someone who is keen to the somatic piece. In that approach, a lot of the time, you don't have to actually go through and relive the experience because it is this energetic imprint. There's are possibilities of releasing it, titrating it, freeing it without having to go back into the story too, although both are useful. For, those of us who are wondering, maybe there's something, or, feel these patterns, let's call them, in yoga we call them samskaras, but it's the patterns that kind of cling along and then are limiting our experience after, and it's not a crisis kind of situation. My general advice is any movement is good, and
Yeah.
keep moving. Find something that is low inertia for you, low effort that you love. I really think dancing is the best thing ever. Best answer to almost everything if we had to have one answer. And having a morning practice, because it's so helpful to set you up for the day. So this morning I woke up and I put on my headphones and I went outside. I really like to be outside if that's available to you. It's kind of nice. Might be personal, but I think others would love it too. And I just let my body dance to the music. And I pick songs that I know I cannot stay still to, right? So then I just move and I just let this free form, intuitive movement arise. Sometimes that's hard to get to. I know from teaching yoga for 25 years, people like to be told what to do. Sometimes that's very safe. You don't have to think about it. So here's my suggestion for those of us who need something to start with is bounce and shake.
I literally was going to say, when I feel my body getting tight, I do the shaking. I do the shaking, and I have my mini trampoline. I even have my vibrator. Well, I have my vibrator. We all have our vibrators, but I have my vibrating plate. And talk about shaking. It's so good to move that stuck tight energy.
So this is kind of crossing over both of your questions, because for just daily stress, so that it doesn't cling on to us, if we think of animals and they encounter a saber-toothed tiger in the forest, and they have a stressful situation, once they escape that, they shake it off. And, I see my dog doing that all the time. I wish I could shake like her. So this
Yeah.
shaking, the more I learn over time, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is probably one of the most universal mammalian nervous system releases. And it can be a nice way to just, if you're feeling heavy and you said, well, I listened to Junie and Michelle and I think I want to do this dancing in the morning or do some kind of stretches in the morning, but I just don't feel like it. It's just a really easy way in.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put some music on, you'll start to feel yourself, playing around inside of that. And the shaking will help your physical longevity, your joint health. It helps your lymph system, which is huge for immunity, and it's basically the garbage disposal of all cellular metabolism. And every little shake is more of that interoception and proprioception signaling to then have your body and your nervous system track where you are, to feel more where you are and who you are, and that you're here and you're safe. And the stress response starts to free itself. Now, in the first question about trauma, sometimes we'll hear, this emotion lives in the hips, or this emotion lives in the belly. I don't necessarily believe that. Like, the research doesn't really show that. There are these patterns of response that might, because of a certain type of trauma, have some commonality in certain places in our body.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about your individual experience. So I would also say that things like yoga that invites a variety of movement for most people, or if you've done yoga for a long time, you might need to do something different to invite variety of ways to move, so that that variety is opening up the possibility that we're unwinding whatever pattern got stuck, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yoga is helpful because of the tuning into the felt sense and the variety. It is not magical in and of itself. It's the way of being with ourselves that is really the healing.
I love that you said that, because that's one of the things that I know you stand for a certain type of yoga. That when I first started doing yoga when I was 19, it was going in, it was tuning in, it was in the being, in my body, that connection. And as the years went on, it started being this athletic thing. It started being the workout, people running to yoga to do this workout to transform their bodies. And it's lost some of that deeper connection, that, what's that word you're using again? That
In
inside one?
interoception.
Interoception, and that connection to that, what's really going on, dropping into a pose, taking those breaths and really feeling into our bodies. Other than yoga, truly, there are very few places that I know of, or tools to help people really connect to their bodies, to really connect to what's going on. I'd love for you to share some other ways that women can connect to their bodies, because in this stage of life, because most of us haven't been taught how to connect deeply. You're mentioning yoga, you're mentioning the shaking and all those things. Women want to feel sensual. Women want to feel sexy. Women want to be able to relax and open and feel alive. So I just laid down a whole bunch of stuff around reconnecting to the body, and how old, classic, beautiful yoga helps us go within. I'm wondering if you want to share a little bit more about that, and what else a woman could do to really connect deeply to her sensuality and have her feel sexy again if she's feeling very disconnected.
Definitely. So I like to frame movement into pattern and quality. And what you're talking about with this yoga becoming more fitness oriented, I really do feel that the strength and the sort of challenge, what that gives us is a feeling of confidence and empowerment. So we could think of that more as the quality. So any type of movement that is challenging, strength building, really hones your focus, that will create those things in your mind. So focus and determination and commitment and courage. For example, when I need that, I have a big project to come, finish this week. I do today. I tune into my martial arts practice. I've practiced many different things, and one of them is Kalari, which is an Indian martial art. And
Mm.
it's just so strengthening and focusing. I also really encourage weightlifting, could be light, resistance training, strength training for anyone who's aging, but especially women, which helps with our muscles, maintaining our muscle mass and our bone density on the physical level, but also to feel like we are really the strong women that we are. And society, we're coming up against, so many judgments about women aging into invisibility. It's our time to just stand the F up. So that's
Oh,
one
drop the
quality.
F bomb, Michelle. Stand the fuck up.
Okay. I don't know where this is going.
I'm just playing with you, honey.
Yes.
But
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
And then we have in the healing nervous system realm, there's two pieces. There's the titration, get it out, which I would say is anything shaking and also rhythmic. So rhythmic dancing, running, swimming, walking, hiking. And then the restoring, calming, grounding, surrendering, like a restorative yoga class or a somatic class. If people are looking for ways to enter into that interoceptive feeling, more of a gentle yoga class or any kind of somatic discipline,
Yeah.
so helpful. And then we can cultivate qualities of being. So, in feeling more sexy and more sensual, I would recommend circular movement. You could start with just joint circles. You could do your shaking and then just how many circles could you find? Figure eights, spiraling waves, and think that you are turning into a watery sea creature and play.
I
Or
love it.
you could find some belly dance, or you could find there's now more, it's wonderful, sort of feminine movement or feminine pathways of movement that tend to be this circularity and fluidity. Those qualities bring a fluidity and a sensuality into your presence, into your felt sense going through your day.
So true. I love it. I love it. I love it. I want to go back to what you were talking about earlier about the co regulation, because there is definitely something to be said about being the eye of the storm while the storm is around us, or being the stone in the water and being so solid. Right now things are so uncertain and there's a lot of upheaval in a lot of different ways. We're certainly not going to get political. At the end of the day, though, wherever you are in the political realm, it's messy. There's volatility, there's confusion, and there's fear. So if there was one tool, I mean, we're talking about embodiment across the board, but of all the tools, is there one that you would say cultivate this aspect or this piece so that you can be that steady, grounded rock, so that you can show up differently in your world and feel more aligned and powerful in your world?
I bring this back to yoga. And when I say that, I assume from my experience that most people think of a asana class in a studio. And to me, yoga means connection and layers and layers and layers of connection. And there are many tools to create that experience of lived connection. Movement is one of them. It's not the only one. It's a super powerful one because of this being the doer of the movement and the feeler of the movement and the movement at the same time. And when those things join, that's one definition of yoga. This presence that quiets the chatter of the mind. But we could think of these layers of connection of our movement in our breath, our body and our mind, more connected to our nervous system, more sense of connection to our relationships and nature and the world, outer, outer, outer. And of course, I'm slightly biased, but from the modern research, it just overwhelmingly confirms how powerful the body is as a tool to feel belonging deep inside. So when everything else is just uncertain. And in my opinion, we don't, at least here in the West and in America, we don't really grow up being used to and comfortable with uncertainty. So
No.
just that, right? We are taking things for granted that are about like structure and stability and safety. And so if we can cultivate that inside of ourselves, that belonging and a safety inside of ourselves through the mindful felt sense of a regular way to tune into your body, whatever that means for you, whatever regular is for you. I feel like that's probably the key. So it's a little bit meta, it's a little bit overarching, but I would say that if you could dance every day or
I
do
love
one
that.
one
Yeah.
thing every day.
Yeah, one thing every day. And one of the things I love about dance is, to me, it's a combo. It's moving our bodies and picking songs that move our heart. I'm like a little late to the party on Pink, but I've been like listening to Pink left and right. And there's this one song called Trust Fall. And I'm just like, it's a trust ball, baby. And I'm just dancing and feeling the power. Find songs that move you and then move. It's a great combo. I love, 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 love your passion for this. I mean, since we first met, I've been blown away by just your wisdom around embodiment and the nuances of this path. I would love to hear your personal story around what brought you here, because you have such a heart connection to this work.
Thanks. And it's funny when you introduced me about my brain, I grew up in grammar school really identifying with the brain and was raised that way. I remember learning if you cross your right thumb on top, you're smart. And if you cross your left thumb, you're creative. And I was so happy to be smart,
Ah,
which is hilarious to me now. Um, but I had some very strict upbringing and I was under a lot of stress. I wouldn't have known that at the time. I didn't know what to call it. But I won a raffle for a year-long membership to an all-women's gym and was curious about yoga because my best friend's mom was a yoga practitioner. So I went to the yoga class, which was nothing like anything that's modern now. It was dark and it was so calming. And this French teacher would say, "Lay your head on your leg and breathe." So it was the first time that I was with myself, where it wasn't about my performance and my grades and the rules and breaking them or staying in them, and it was just about being. And it took me years to realize how much that saved me. I really think it may have saved my life.
mm,
And so I continued to explore yoga for many, 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 many years. And then I had a car accident that really impacted my ability to sit, to sleep, I could walk fine, definitely to practice my yoga practice. And a very more lengthy story of healing brought me around to studying biomechanics and the evolution and paradigm shifts that are happening inside of science and biomechanics these days because of recognizing the importance of the neuromyofascial web, which is our connective tissue, is the same as our muscle tissue, which is the same as our nervous system. And I realized that most of the things I had been taught were healing were no longer healing and maybe not even healing to begin with.
mm.
And so my mission is to, bring the overarching concepts of this more than physical connected yoga approach to a more evidence-based application so that we can get the maximum benefit and the minimum harm. And I know now I am almost 47. I feel better than I did 20 years ago and more vital and more myself and more confident And like I have the tools that I will never really have the body breakdown that I went through in my 20s.
Wow. I wow, wow, wow. You know, our lives definitely do guide us, don't they? You know, for me, the walking on eggshells, unable to speak my truth and having a really wicked inner critic led me to the work that I do to help people undo what's between their ears and claim their confidence and know their worthiness and their lovability, and for you to not even be able to sit or sleep and be able to be brought into this work. Amazing, amazing. So most of the people that are listening and watching right now are 40 and most likely over 50 and above. And so, you know, we're bumping up against things like hormones or lack thereof. Um, Many of the people that are listening and watching are single and have some trepidation around being with other people and afraid to have, you know, they're afraid of just being themselves, you know. And yes, that's a between the ears thing, but we also are tying physicality to mental well-being as well. So you've shared a whole bunch of different practices, whether it's shaking or yoga, movement, walking, lifting. I'm just wondering, what might you offer to the woman who is really feeling so disconnected from her body? I mean, all of these things will help, but is there a bridge? Like, where do you start? I mean, even just waking up and saying, yes, I'm going to have a morning routine. Maybe they've never even had a morning routine, and thank God I have a morning routine. It totally involves movement and meditation and connecting to myself before I start doing anything in the world. But for the person that maybe really just doesn't even know how to start or feels really uncomfortable with their body. Maybe it's body image, maybe it's extra weight, or maybe they're just so disconnected they just don't even feel their bodies. Where do you start?
You know, that disconnection I feel is the patriarchy. And it is
Mm,
our capitalist civilization. And most of us are acculturated to disconnect. And that
yeah.
disconnect is really the root of so many issues. Um, and I think the things that are coming to mind as some of the easiest ways in are giving a tactile touch to yourself.
Mm,
Hands on your heart is like a little hug. You know, maybe if you're listening, try this right now and just take a breath into your hands.
mm.
And even in one breath, you can find a little settling.
Yep.
And you can have your hands, I think of them as both caring and tender, but also listening. Like, what is really, really happening in there? But then that tactile touch, you can take all around your body. Say, like, well, there's my head. And you just tune into the shape and the texture, you know, what the bones are hard, what's soft, with love in your hands and taking your time. This kind of holding is also part of trauma healing. So there's one.
I
Another
love that.
is,
I just like love. It's so simple and yet so profound. In fact, when I talk with people, I so often hear that vulnerable part that's, you know, like afraid to open, and I offer hands on heart, and I ask them to take that breath and ask themselves, what do I need, just to start that deep connection with their heart? Like, what's going on? What do I need? And I always say, it sounds so easy and like so not a big deal. And when you do this throughout the day, just that moment to connect to your heart, it's life changing because you're tuning in. So I love that. What else you got?
I would say, I like also scrubbing on the bones. And
Mm,
especially on the sacrum, which, if you don't know where the sacrum is, it's the bony part of your pelvis in the middle. And around the hips is just so nice because we're always sitting, right?
yeah.
The other is walking is underrated. We are actually shaped, our whole body and anatomy came from walking. and the intelligence of our life force inside the tissues, deciding what needed support and what needed force transmission. And so walking is absolutely fundamental. Plus, this crossing and the rhythm helps the mind and the nervous system on another level. So, going for a walk, tactile, and just moving through the day with this is actually the most advanced. It sounds so simple. I have not mastered this at all. Seeing if you can take a moment, maybe 3 moments during the day, maybe set an alarm on the phone to just feel your whole body in space. But it's hard to remember that.
Yeah.
It's
I
very
love
hard to
that.
remember.
And being that I'm a meditator and I follow Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, he's constantly doing that. Like, feel your body, be with your body, to really go into your body. It's just, again, so simple, such a moment, and so impactful. Again, connecting, taking the time to remember that we are in these bodies. And I love it. I love it, Michelle. Any last words that you want to share about the journey of movement and embodiment to have an extraordinary second half of life?
Yeah, I think we're really just on the precipice of what we're going to collectively learn that's already wired into us for our vitality and our energy, our resilience of physical, mental, and emotional layers of ourself, and the regenerative capacity. And so I just want to encourage anyone who's listening and curious that anything that you're even just, a little bit interested in, just go check it out. You can be a jack of all trades, dabble a little here and there, create something totally unique for yourself at home. I think that the daily personal, breadcrumbs really, really add up. And there's so much power in moving with other people. So I know that's a whole different aspect, and it might be a lot easier, and you don't have to be seen at home, so definitely do that. And that's, the commitment to yourself. But there's something else that happens. So maybe go to a concert and let yourself move more and notice what happens with the sense of unity with others. And I think that's so important. Again, it's that healing of the disconnect, getting into our bodies again is, to me, revolutionary and what the world really needs.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you shared that, because it's two pieces there. There's the movement, but you're also connecting to other people as well. And so people may not necessarily feel comfortable yet to dance at home or have prolonged dancing at home. But there's so many places to go dancing, so many opportunities. And frankly, I've been known to reach out to my peeps and say, dance party, because why not? To have people around me, we need each other. We're not meant to be alone and isolated. And to bring in the music and the joy, oh gosh, sounds great. I mean, and I'm a big Michael Franti fan, and one of the
Yeah, I know
greatest. You knew that, or yeah, you did know that. Yeah, I have tickets for the summer. I can't wait. And my boyfriend's never been to a concert yet, and we dance all the time together with the music. And one of the things I love about, Michael's concerts is that there's so much dancing. Everybody dances, and he even incorporates dance with other people and connect with other people. It's just, oh my God, no words, just yummy. So I love that you brought that in. Michelle, thank you for so much wisdom around how much is here that's with us all the time, that's untapped energy, that when we work with it, we can have an extraordinary life. And when we disconnect or are not in tune with it, how we're missing out. We're missing out, and it can definitely cost us. So I love what you bring to the table. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Junie, for having me. Thanks for all the work that you're bringing into the world, too. Make it a better and more loving place.
Thanks, hun. All right, that's our episode for today. Go find some music that you absolutely love. Shake that booty. Look in the mirror. Give yourself a wink. Give yourself a nice, sexy dance. and just keep connecting to yourself and others. This is how we heal the planet, and this is how we have extraordinary lives. Until we meet again. Mwah. One more thing before you go. Have you taken my Discover Your Love Avatar quiz? It's a 2-minute quiz that can help you not only know your strengths, your superpower, because you have one, also identify some of your blind spots, some of the things that might be having you in your fear, having you behaving in ways that aren't in alignment with your highest self, the way you want to be when it comes to dating and relationships. And it'll also help you discover why maybe the stars haven't lined up for you yet. Bottom line is, you take this 2-minute quiz, you get a full report in your email with details on how to move forward in next level love, whether you want a partner or not. So you can go to midlifeloveoutloud.com/love quiz. The link is in the show notes as well. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the station, I'm going to encourage you to do that too, so you don't miss any episodes. And I hope you got a ton out of today's. See you next week. Mwah.